Caitlin Clark had just endured a game she would probably love to erase from memory, but what happened after the final whistle may have raised even more questions. As the cameras searched for reactions, attention quickly shifted toward the sideline, where something appeared noticeably off. Why did Caitlin seem so distant? Was there tension with Stephanie White, or was something else happening behind the scenes that fans completely missed? Caitlin Clark had a terrible game. The Indiana Fever suffered an embarrassing loss, and then the cameras caught a moment that sent fans into full detective mode. It was not a technical foul, an ejection, or some dramatic screaming match that required security to separate everybody. In fact, that was exactly what made the moment more interesting. Caitlin appeared to turn away from Stephanie White, and suddenly, one question began taking over the conversation. Was this simply the frustration of a brutal night? Or was something much bigger starting to crack beneath the surface? Because when a superstar struggles, people usually focus on the missed shots. When a team loses, people usually blame the defense. But when the body language between a franchise player and her coach starts becoming the main topic after the game, the conversation changes very quickly. And this particular loss gave fans plenty to argue about. The Fever went into the game against a Dallas Wings team that had been struggling, yet Indiana came away with a frustrating 91-85 defeat. Caitlin Clark finished with 10 points, 9 assists, and 4 rebounds, but the shooting numbers were ugly as she went 4 for 15 from the field and 2 for 8 from three-point range. There is no need to sugarcoat that performance. Caitlin did not play well. She missed shots that she normally makes, struggled to find a consistent rhythm, and never looked completely comfortable within the flow of the offense. For a player capable of taking over a game with one deep three-pointer and turning an ordinary possession into a highlight before the defense even realizes what happened, this was a night where almost everything felt slightly off. However, that is where the argument becomes much more complicated, because one of the loudest complaints from fans was not simply that Caitlin missed shots. The complaint was she found her rhythm. And to be clear, this is not a criticism of Kelsey Mitchell. If a player is scoring 37 points, nobody should be pretending that she needs to apologize for being good at basketball. Mitchell did exactly what a scorer is supposed to do when the opportunities are there. She attacked, knocked down shots, got to the free throw line, and carried a massive share of the offensive load. The problem, according to frustrated fans, was the balance. They watched the offense and felt that Caitlin was not being given enough opportunities to get comfortable before the game started slipping away. They pointed to the lack of early pick-and-roll actions designed specifically for her, the limited movement used to create clean three-point looks, and several possessions where she appeared to give up the ball without getting it back. That is an important distinction, because there is a difference between saying Caitlin Clark should shoot every possession and saying one of the most dangerous offensive players in basketball should be actively involved in the offense. Nobody is asking for the Caitlin Clark Basketball Association, where everybody else stands in the corner and waits for a government-issued permission slip to touch the ball. Basketball does not work that way. When she is reduced to standing off the ball for long stretches, the offense can start looking like someone accidentally changed the Wi-Fi password and nobody knows where the connection went. That was the frustration surrounding this game. Fans felt that Kelsey Mitchell was being deliberately established while Caitlin was expected to figure things out later. By the time the Fever began putting her in more favorable actions, she had already missed enough shots to make the entire night feel like an uphill climb. Once a shooter begins losing rhythm, basketball can quickly become a psychological battle as much as a physical one. Every missed shot adds a little more pressure to the next attempt. Every possession begins to feel heavier, and an aggressive defender suddenly appears even more difficult to beat. Instead of playing freely and reacting naturally to what is happening on the floor, a player can gradually become more conscious of the misses that came before. Caitlin Clark appeared to face that kind of frustration as the game continued, and although she attempted to become more aggressive later in the contest, it seemed increasingly difficult for her to find the rhythm that had escaped her earlier. As the game became more frustrating, attention eventually shifted away from the missed shots and toward a moment involving Stephanie White. A clip began circulating in which Caitlin appeared to turn away while White was attempting to communicate with her, and that brief interaction immediately. The reality is that a few seconds of video cannot reveal the complete relationship between a player and a coach. Caitlin had endured a difficult game. The Fever were dealing with the frustration of a disappointing loss, and emotions were understandably running high. it is entirely possible that the moment reflected nothing more than a player who was frustrated with herself and wanted to move on from a difficult sequence. At the same time, once a moment like that appears on camera, particularly when it involves Caitlin Clark, fans are naturally going to study every movement as though they have suddenly been hired by the FBI's basketball behavior unit.